All right, today we're going to take and practice a little bit of that confident mark making we started learning last week. Hopefully, you'll be a little bit more comfortable making marks. You'll probably still be pretty rough, and that's just fine. We're just practicing today. Another one of those assignments that you'll get the points if you just do it. All right, and some of the tips and tricks I'm going to give you today are just advice. They're not necessarily things I would grade you off on. The first thing we're going to talk about, right, is defining our drawing space. And so I'm going to come in here. I'm going to mark off where my drawing space is. That's where I want my drawing to kind of fit in. If you don't do this in your actual drawing one of these times in the future, I'm not going to count you off for it, but it is a pretty good practice to get into. For example, let's say I'm drawing Curious George's head here, and it goes off to the side a little bit. I can move that over if I have a drawing space there. If I don't have that gap there and it's the edge of my paper, I've got to move his head, and that may mean starting over a bunch of stuff. It also gives me somewhere to doodle and practice ideas. If I'm drawing someone's face, a lot of times I'll struggle with their lips if they're turned to the left or to the right a little bit. And so what you'll see me do is draw their mouth several times over to the side, just trying to get used to that shape, those shapes and the shading and stuff like that before I commit it to my actual drawing. All right. It also gives me somewhere to grab my paper. I can grab my paper without touching my drawing, and that's really, it's kind of nice. You don't want messy thumbprints and grime all over your drawing. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push a little bit harder than I need to. You notice this pencil will get super dark. It's got a nice rich black to it. I'm going to push this a little bit harder than I usually do because I want you to be able to see it on the camera. But the biggest tip that a lot of you need to do is draw lightly. Some of you are so heavy-handed. All right, and even that's too small for most, or too light for you guys to see on the camera. Some of you are so heavy-handed, you could literally, you carve a line into your paper whenever you draw. Notice I'm not feathering, right? If I'm needing to, I'm making compound lines, long strokes, okay? But a lot of you will be so heavy-handed that when we go to erase later, we're going to have big issues, and it's not going to erase because it's literally carving a line in your page. Just kind of roughing stuff in here. And we want to be able to erase. Okay, if you find you're struggling with that, stop gripping your pencil like you're writing and start gripping it with like a draftsman would, right? Like you're drawing. Grab it back here, either overhand, like this, or a lot of times when I'm doing ellipses, I'll draw it like this, right? That will help, that choking back will help get your drawing a lot lighter. Okay, another big thing I would emphasize, right, as I'm laying this stuff in, use your whole paper. My goodness, it happens every year, all right, so if this is you, don't feel bad, but every year I give kids an 18 by 24 sheet of paper to draw the plant with, and they could have done their whole drawing on a note card probably. It's that small. And so we want to use up this whole drawing space. That's going to make a lot more interesting drawing. Size matters, boys and girls. You'll learn that as you get older. All right, we want to make sure that we're using that whole paper, and we want to make sure we're starting with big general shapes. I started with this. I laid it in. It's wrong. Okay, I can tell you right now there's not this weird wobble bump up here. It's actually going to be more like this. But I didn't stop and fix it. I just laid something in. A lot of you will try to lay in this hand shape like this, and then you go, oh, that's not right, and then you'll erase it. And you'll try to lay it in again, and you'll be like, oh, that's not right, and you'll try to erase it. And you'll spend your whole class period doing that. Lay something on there and be willing to go, I'll fix that later. I can fix that later, all right? But start with those big general things and then work from the inside out. Think about how these structures, this body kind of overlaps this head shape a little bit, okay? Like, I started with the bigger shapes. Now the next shape I'd probably put on there is like an oval shape for his muzzle. It's kind of right there. Real rough, nothing fancy going on here. I'm not stopping to fix mistakes yet. I'm just getting a gesture on my paper. And don't be in a rush to be too specific. A lot of you will stop when you're drawing the head and you'll finish the eyes and the mouth and you'll make all of this look sexy. And then what'll happen is you'll end up finding that it's not the right size or it's in the wrong spot. And you'll have to erase all of that work to move it. Right now, I've committed maybe 15 seconds total to this head. I have no problem if I had to erase this whole head right now. I'd have no problem doing that. And so don't be in a rush to get too specific. And a lot of your drawings are going to be like this when we get to the 5 to 6 minute mark. I'm going to come around. We're going to move toys and objects around. And you're just going to practice starting a drawing. We're not going to finish any of these. We're just practicing. Just kind of roughing stuff in. I know there's huge mistakes in this drawing. That's not what the beginning part of a drawing is about. The beginning part is just getting something on your paper so you can say, this is too big, this is too small, this needs to go over here. Right? And a lot of you, like, my visual memory is really good. You'll notice I didn't erase this when I fixed it because I know which one is the right mark. If that's confusing for you, go ahead and erase out the wrong mark once you've made the correct mark. And so I can kind of see I've got a little bit of a bump here, but maybe not that much of a bump. It kind of comes out here a little bit, comes down, and then this is relatively flat until it hits his shirt. If that stuff on the extra there is confusing to you, pull that out. I just go a bit darker, because what would happen is if we were finishing these drawings, we would shade all of this and that would disappear anyway, so I don't need to do that. And the last thing I would say is don't feel like you have to copy it exactly, which I know we're just learning, maybe that's a good thing to try to aim for. But if I find out that, say, as I try to lay in this ear shape here, maybe I find out that because this is a drawing and not a photograph, this ear doesn't make any sense. I might edit it out later. You can't edit out your whole drawing, obviously, but the cool thing about drawing is that I don't just see what you see. If I wanted to see that, I could ask any one of you to pull out a camera. I see what you see as it's translated through your brain and your hand and your ability. And so it's really interesting to kind of see. That's what the interesting part about art is. I'm not just seeing what you're seeing, I'm seeing how you impact what you're seeing. I think this is probably here a little bit more. Notice though, I still haven't committed to making anything real specific. I mean, I've roughed his eyes in. You know, like right now I might kind of underline where Curious and where George is, but I'm probably not going to waste any time putting that in because there's bigger and more important things that need to be addressed first. But even this isn't all that accurate. I'm just roughing stuff in, slowly fixing things a little bit at a time. But I have to have something on there first to fix. I'm going to draw in the seam here. From where I'm drawing, I can see a little bit of a tag right underneath here, but it's really confusing when I'm drawing it. So I think I'm just going to edit it out. I'm not going to put that in there. Right? But you'll end up with something like this. It's very rough. It's a gesture. That's what it's there for. Now I can go in and start going. After this, what we'll learn next is how to compare shapes so I can see, is his head the right size to his body and all of that stuff. But right now, that's all I want. I just want you to get something on your paper, then we'll pick it apart after that, and we'll learn how to do that later. All right? And so I'm going to say probably we need to knock out about 4 of these. I'm going to in the class, I'm going to set a timer for like 6 minutes, and then I'm going to move around. If you're at home, you might put a timer on your phone and lay it up here. So as you're drawing, you're probably not going to have access to a big sheet of paper like this at home. If you want to, it's just newsprint pad that I bought from an art supply store. If all you've got is printer paper, all you got is printer paper. You're more than welcome to use a pencil and eraser on this one. Just make sure you submit it to Google Classroom so I can grade it. Probably be grading a bunch of stuff on Wednesday. But like I said, 3 or 4 of these, 5 to 6 minutes each. Don't, sit here and perfect and finish this drawing. You're missing the point if you're doing that. All right, so go ahead and knock that out now.